because we're here to help you. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started on our Dotloop class. So I'm going to share my screen. So I've been in real estate for about 5 years, and Dotloop is by far the best program when it comes to document saving and sharing for digital signatures, and also for talking to your clients, your title people, your lender, anyone and everybody who's involved in your transaction. So this is the first screen of Dotloop, and you'll see that it has a property address, and this one is a purchase. So we have a buyer, and it's under contract. And we've got our purchase price, our closing date, and you see this little button here, view details. That will take us to our second screen. Let's take a little bit more, a longer look at this first screen though. So this folder is called, excuse me, contract documents. So it's got all of our things in here. And here's our people section. Then we have a task list, which is optional for you guys to use as a guide. So that's an overview of the first screen. In the details screen, you'll also see our people here, followed by our property address section. There is a section for financials, dates like the closing date. We don't really use those sections. Here's one for listing, if this were to be a listing. Geographic description. This section right here is really great to know, the one that says legal description, because you can copy and paste the entire legal here, and later on you can autofill it into your documents. And lastly, we have a property section. So that being said, that's just kind of a bird's eye view of the two screens, right? So for our class today, we're going to create a new loop. So what you do when you have a new contract or listing, you're going to begin by clicking this button here, add loop. From here, you'll type in a property address. So if you're working along on your computer right now, you can type in your own address, your mom's house, your friend's house, maybe a listing you like online, just whatever you want. Let's just make something up, and later on we can archive it or whatever. So I typed in our admin office, and you see where it says Google Maps. So it's going to pull in some address information from Google Maps. Or if we were to do a listing that's on MLS, like this one listing we have, this gorgeous house. If we were to do a loop on this one, it would pull over Robert's info that he's entered from MLS. So anyways, that's just kind of good to know. But for this class, I'm just going to use our admin office. So once you type in your address, you're going to click continue. And now we're going to select a loop template. So if it's a listing, buyer. Let's pretend that I'm going to buy the admin office. So I'm going to select buying template and continue. You can upload a photo if you wish, but you don't have to. So now what Dotloop is going to do is it's going to pull in all the documents we need to write this contract. So we're going to go view loop, and here we are. So we have a guide that I've created to help you guys along the way. We've got our contract, our property disclosure, lead-based payment needed, a cost sheet, disclosure of brokerage services. This one, the whole house and termite authorization, is a SALT required document when it comes to if the buyer agrees to schedule their own inspections, if they don't want inspections, if they're going to let you pick, whatever is the scenario, that's what that is. So it's our inspection authorization. wire fraud, TRR. We've got some lovely reading materials for our client here about lead-based paint, Oklahoma contract information. And just for kicks, we've got all kinds of loan addendums, a blank addendum, an HOA. So pretty much anything and everything that you might need for your contract is going to automatically pull into here, which is great. So whenever you're starting a new loop, there are 5 things that will help you a whole lot if you will do them in this order. So write this down. Number 1 is people. Number 2, details. Number 3, autofill. Number 4, share. And last and most importantly, submit for review. So kind of starting with our end goal in mind, I want to show everybody this button right here. This button is so crucial to click. Once your documents are prepared and signed, and you've got a contract or listing, you're going to click this. And we're going to get into that later, but I just want to point this button out, okay? So, people, details, autofill, share, submit for review. So, if we do those in that order, we're going to go down here to people. We're going to add our buyer. And later on, we can add our title person. We can add our lender. We can add our home inspectors. We can add as many people as we want. The bare minimum, though, for a buyer contract would be title, lender, buyer, the other agent. So let's say that I'm going to buy this one. So I'm going to type in my email here. So whenever you enter a contact, you have to assign the person a role. So here's where you can find an extensive list of options, but I'm going to be the buyer. It's optional to add a phone number or their current address or any of this other info, but we really need name, email, and role. The email is super important because later on we're going to share all these documents with them through email for them to sign digitally. So that's how you add a person. And I'm going to go ahead and add the closer that I want to use because buyers get to pick where you close, which is kind of cool. Sometimes on MLS, you'll see where the listing agent wants so-and-so at whatever company, but really the buyers have questions. Okay, so we've done step number 1, people. So now let's go to details. So there's our people, here's our property address, MLS number would be great to fill in if it was listed on MLS. I'm going to offer $1 million. So what we're going to do here is we're going to enter all of the things that we want Dotloop to automatically fill in on our contract forms. Okay, so it's going to need to know stuff like the purchase price, the earnest money amount. It's going to want to know where we're closing. And what is my commission split percent having the buyer's side? And it's going to want to know like, when are we closing? A month from now or so, probably, right? That's usually what it is. And we're going to need a legal description, right? So if it's not on MLS, you can go to the county assessor website. And since Google Maps has told us this is in Oklahoma County, we can just do that right now. We can look up Oklahoma County assessor and go to their website. And sometimes you have to kind of play around to find exactly where the property search section is. So let's do that right now because I have a link to the direct page on my computer, but I'm not on my computer right now, right? So here we go. Let's find it. Let's see. Oklahoma County information. there should be some kind of property search here. I hope I can find this on the spot during this class for you guys. Do what?
Like county assessor, find address or whatever.
Here we go. Lane found it. Oh wait, no, that's the tax assessor. That would work, but I'd really like to find, yes, that's the one we're looking. Good job.
From Google.
Yeah.
They like find address, county assessor.
Thank you so much. So there's a couple ways to search. You can search by name, but if you look at the example here, it has to be last name, first name, right? Or we can just type in the address. So we'll go 1508 West Edmond. Why did it not find it? Oh gosh, it would do this, right? 1508. That's goodness gracious. It's playing games this morning. Anyways, well, whatever. We tried, right? So let's just say that this is so remember in the geographic part here, legal description, we're just gonna call it like lot 1, lot 2, Edmond. Okay. The reason that this is capitalized is because addition names on legal addresses are always capitalized. I'm not sure why, it looks like you're yelling at everyone, but that's just how they read when deeds and records. If this were a property that were way out in the middle of nowhere and it had what's called like a farm legal, you know, you see those long ones with directions and degrees. The great thing about this little section right here is you can copy and paste the entire thing right there. And so let's say that this was built in 2020, so we don't need our lead-based paint agreement, right? Mm-hmm. Cool. So now we've done step number 2, details. So we definitely want to save. And back up at the top, there is another place to save as well. And the great thing about Dotloop is that when we click this back to loop button, if we have forgotten to save, it will prompt you and say, don't you want to save? Mm-hmm. You just say yes. And here is also an option to upload a photo later if you just want to do that for fun or whatever. So now we're going to go back to our front page and we're going to do step number 3, autofill. So we're going to need certain documents for certain transactions, right? So before we fill these out, I want to show you guys the Dotloop guide that I put together for you to help guide you along the way. So for a listing, these are the documents that we require. An active MLS sheet. It's awesome if you guys would fill out the cover sheet. It's not absolutely required, but it's nice to have, and we'll look at that in a minute. Our listing agreement, we're gonna have a residential property condition disclosure or disclaimer or exemption, depending on the situation. If you're not sure about what kind of page, send me or Haley a message and we'll help you with that. There's also the lead-based paint disclosure if it's 1978 or before, and then the disclosure of brokerage services, and estimated net seller. You can use the title apps if you like for those to calculate, and a wire fraud document. So contracts are a bit more complex than just a listing, right? So that's why I've made this list for you guys. We've got once it's under contract, we need a pending sheet, a cover, the acknowledgement and confirmation of disclosures. A lot of times people mistake the first page of a deal as just another page of the contract, right? If you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll show you right now. It's this page, acknowledgement and confirmation of disclosures. And in our templates, it's included as the first page of the contract. So just so you know. And we're also gonna need any counteroffers, addendums, or supplements, our property disclosures, lender pre-approval if it's loan, funds, if it's cash. And the list goes on, right? So I've made you guys these little checklist sheets. And once you, sell it, here's what you need from title. And then on the second page, you know how our second screen, after you click view details, I made you guys a guide of what all needs to be filled in on that back page as well. And we just went over all of this stuff, like, and I highlighted the legal description section as well. So that is to help you all out. Okay, so back to step 3, autofill. So we're gonna need our contract. We're gonna need,
Excuse me, Ms. Griffin. Sheet, the checklist,
Mhm.
was that under Dotloop guide?
Yes,
Okay.
that was that, yeah. So, all right, so let's write it up. So we're gonna need our contract, we're gonna need a property condition disclosure, which you can get from MLS in the supplements section. These are just kind of placeholders, so I'm gonna skip those. We're going to need a cost sheet, but we're gonna use an app for that. We're gonna need disclosure of brokerage services, our inspection authorization, our wire fraud. So those are the basics, right? They're all always gonna be in this order at the top. And then when you get to the TRR, these are kind of the variables, right? So let's say we're gonna need our HOA doc, and it's gonna be like a conventional loan, okay? So now that we've selected all those, we are going to open them. And here's where the magic of autofill happens. So it takes it a little minute, but it has all of this stuff. And we're just gonna take a look, make sure it looks right. It's got all of our stuff in the back end. And you can even add things if you want, like your offer date, your offer expiration, which is great to have. So let's say we're gonna give them until tomorrow. And let's just add like at 4 p.m., right? And let's say that we want the property to include the couch in the lobby. And all right, looks good to me. So I'm gonna click autofill. And a lot of the work is done. There are still some things to do, like check marking about your property condition, whether it's a disclosure, disclaimer, exemption, lead-based paint. So let's say we had a disclosure and it's built after 78, so we don't need a lead-based paint. Over here, we're gonna select conventional, we're gonna add the seller's name, let's say it's Barrett. And if you don't know the seller's name, you can also find that on the county assessor site or on MLS. If you click on the realist icon to the left of the picture on MLS, it'll have realist tax information. And see, everything in yellow has all been pulled over from the details screen and auto-filled for us. I always like to put on this, when does possession take place? I always like to put at funding, because I feel like once the money changes hands, that's when it should happen. Some people put at closing, you know, kind of whatever you want to put there. And Serena has a great class about contracts and contract timelines and the ins and outs of what happens once you're under contract after that time. So I won't get into like the TRR period and stuff. I'm gonna leave a lot of things blank because like this says 10 days of left blank. This is 7 days of left blank. Okay, so this section number 10, under title evidence, I will point out a few things real quickly here. We usually always want a title commitment, right? Sometimes people want a title with attorney opinion to save money, but we should always tell people to get title insurance. Like, come on now. A land boundary pin stake survey, that's the big chunks of land where somebody would go out and take exact measurements, make sure fences are in place. A mortgage inspection report is required with any kind of loan. If it's a cash deal, sometimes the buyer will elect not to do anything. That's what that new one is there for, and that was just added this year.
Hey, Anna, question.
Sure.
If if a buyer chooses that option 3 of not receiving any land boundary report or survey, what's the risk for them?
Well, somebody could come back later and say, your fence is 50 feet inside my property, move it. You know, and then so if they don't have that survey showing the exact boundaries, they can find themselves in a legal battle possibly, you know, if they don't want to move the fence. That's a great question, Randy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and also when it comes to a mortgage inspection report, those are basically a drawing of like where the house is and where the building lines are. So like if somebody wants to add a pool, they really need to have a mortgage inspection report to show where exactly they can build within their lot. Because if they just go ahead and put that pool in there without having one, the city could come back later and say, well, that's over the building line. You need to tear down your pool because we're putting a sidewalk in. You know, so anyways, all right, so moving on. Let's say we're not gonna get a home warranty. Revisions. This last part, number 13, it is always great to add these lines. Oops, I've got my caps lock on. Should termites be found in inspections, the seller will pay for full barrier termite treatment. That's pretty standard on any offer. So yeah. And here you'll see where auto-filled our termination date and time. So that basically means we need them to accept our offer or reject it by this time. There's where my buyer, myself, can sign. And seller. And here's where you guys have got to fill in all of your info as an agent. If you're not sure about what our company name is, our company license number, our company address, so on and so forth, you can go to OREC and do a search, and you can pull up all of Salt's info there. Or I can send it to you if you're in a pinch. And you should always also look on MLS and fill out the listing broker side as well, especially if you have a lender, because if you get a contract and this section is not all filled out with a lender involved, they're gonna make you change it later and give everybody an issue. So, okay. So this one, if it's a listing, we're gonna put listing brokerage. If it's a buyer, we're gonna put sales agreement. And this just kind of breaks down our duties as an agent to our client, where they sign. Here's the inspection authorization. I really like Hearth and Home and Innovative Pest, so I'm gonna like recommend those to my client, right? And I'm gonna select this for my buyer. So that they can go ahead and just sign, right? Or you can select nothing except for this box right here. Please make arrangements for my inspection according to the availability of the inspectors and just have your client sign, right? Here's the wire fraud doc. This is required by OREC for buyers and sellers, so we always have our clients sign. Here's a little HOA doc, and see how it's already got my name assigned. Conventional loan, we would just fill in our loan amount and sign. If there was anything in our contract about closing costs or anything like that, we would copy it here. So now we have completed step 3 autofill, so step 4 share. So for teaching purposes, let's just say I've already got my estimated cost sheet in here, everything that we need for our offer is ready to send to the client, right? So we're gonna go to save and share. And it's selected our buyer, and see how this says can sign? You wanna always make sure it is on can, fill, and sign. Especially when it comes to, if you have a listing and the client's filling out one of those long property disclosures where they call it check marks. If it's not selected as can fill and sign, it's not gonna let them check those boxes. And so we can attach a PDF, we can see here what all we are sending them, and we can even send them a nice little note, like, hey, thanks for trusting me with your deal. Here's all of the offer documents for you to fill out, and with just one click, it sends all of those. You can see it says they've been shared. And so what that's gonna do, it's gonna send me an email where I can just click, and sign. Pretty cool, right? So, I'm gonna go ahead and sign this on my phone really quick. Come on, phone. Well, no, actually, I'm not, just so we can save some time, right? Let's say all of this is signed, right? And it's in my email box, right? For whatever reason, well, sorry, let me start over. For teaching purposes, let's pretend that we have the seller, right? And so the buyer's agent has just emailed us a bunch of signed documents. So like this one I was helping out my Tajas on the other day. They sent everything over to my email, but I want to get this in Dotloop, right? So, sorry. There are 3 different ways to add documents to your loop in addition to what are already there. We have templates. Browse is where you can pull things off of your computer that are saved, or email, which is super awesome because not all other emails use Dotloop. So what you do is you click that little email option and you copy the clipboard. Then you go over to your email account and forward and paste. Oh gosh, this is the Mac, you guys. Let me paste. Let me try. Oh,
Where are you going to?
shoot. Well,
To Dotloop?
yes. So it says email copy to clipboard. So what I usually do on my computer is right click and paste. Sorry, that's not working. Anyways, what you would do is paste what this is copied, right? In a forward email, and you push send, and then all of these documents will show up in your loop. So, and the other ways, browse, you do that, and it will pull up all the files you have saved on your computer. And let me show you our templates while we're in here. So we have them sorted out a bit, but if there's ever anything that you can't find in the contract folder for contracts, or the listing folder for listings, if you scroll down to this OREC folder, this has anything and everything you can imagine from OREC, right? So let's say, for example, this is a land deal, right? So instead of a typical residential contract, let's say it's a vacant lot, right? So in the search bar, you can type in the word vacant. And see, if you hover over, it shows the whole title. There's our contract for a vacant lot. Or let's say it's farm, which Tyler just did a great class on farms the other day. Here's our contract for farm, ranch, and recreational land. So, yeah, let's take a look at the contract docs folder. So it's gonna have all the things in the templates, but it's also gonna have things like the buyer's counter, to the seller's counter, you know, other things that you might need. But again, if you ever are looking for something, you can't find it, scroll down to the OREC folder and search for a word that makes it a bit different from other things, or you can scroll through and find it. So those are the ways to add things. All right, so step number 5, submit for review, the most important step of all. And here's why. When you guys click submit for review and you select your folder, which this should just mirror what it is, right? If it's a contract, contract review. If it's a listing, listing. When you guys click submit for review and submit, it is going to email Haley and I and notify us that you have a new listing or a new contract. And that way it's on our radar to look at as soon as possible and to get you a Dotloop message as soon as possible, like, hey, congrats. Oh, I noticed this was skipped, or we need so-and-so to initial here, and we're gonna help you guys along the way. Yeah, so once you have listing or contract, don't forget to submit. And some other cool features that I'll show you are, you can add a folder. So let's say that our we get to the part where we're negotiating repairs, right? We're writing the TRR, and maybe there's back and forth, maybe there's a lot of receipts stuff. You can make a new folder. You can click in there, right in here to rename it. We can call it our TRR folder, whatever we want, right? And so, let's say you uploaded this one from your computer by clicking browse, right? And now you want to move it. So you click on it, you can drop and drag, sort things out. I always will move things around in your contract folder because I have my checklist in my head. It's just my habit. So please don't be offended. But yeah, if you guys want to add new folders, if you upload something and it's a bunch of jumbled numbers and letters, you can click here, you can rename it. Archiving is like our digital trash can in a way, because there's actually no way to delete things on Dotloop. Because we've got to keep those records for a few years, it's the law, right? So let's say this is closed, right? And so I'm gonna go through, or Haley's gonna go through, we're gonna make sure everything's done, we're gonna mark it as sold, and we're gonna mark it as closed. I've noticed that some agents go back later and they archive it. Please, please, please don't do that, because archiving, again, is our digital trash can. And we're actually working on a new program for back office accounting that will sync up to Dotloop when this is marked as sold. So do not archive transactions after they close. Let us see, what else? Oh, messaging feature. So once you submit for review, do this, check that, submit, we get our email, we send you a note, right? I've had people say, I don't know how to write back to you, because it comes to an email and it will most likely be your SALT email, or whatever email you've selected to do your business with, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you just hop into your loop and it'll be right here, this little speech bubble. Mm-hmm. So, whenever I send a note, I always go new note, and I always select the agent, and I copy Barrett, Tammy, and Jason. I do that on everybody, so don't be like, oh my God, which copy the broker? And so I say like, congrats, goodness, not used to this keyboard. Just need an earnest money receipt, right? And so you want to come back and say something, right? You just select this little note section and see, here's our chain, and here's where you can reply. And this is selected, so if you push enter, it will send it to everybody. So you can ask questions in here, you can give updates, you need something, you can message here. Yeah, it's really awesome. And later on, whenever we have added like the other agent, the lender, let's say you need to send an update to title and lender, right? Well, once they're in your people section, you can go up here and do a new note and send it to them. Or let's say you need to send a few things to title and lender, right? Not those, but just for teaching purposes. Whatever you click on, you can share. All your people are gonna be here for you to select who can see it. Whenever you select it, it's usually view only. Whenever you're seeing things that have been signed, right? If it's the other agent and you need them to sign, like say it's the loan addendum, right? Say we're sending the loan addendum, we have the buyer to the seller, to the listing agent. Edit in private is always selected for other agents, usually automatically by Dotloop will do that. That way, they can get their client to sign however works best for them, whether they use Dotloop or not. So yeah, Dotloop is pretty awesome, you guys. It's really handy. And trying to think, oh, one last thing that I think is important for you guys to know is that you can actually go back and look at the activity on each individual document. So let's say you sent over a TRR and you've got like 2 or 3 days left in your TRR period, right? And maybe a couple days go by and you've got one left and the other agent's like, well, we never got it. And you know that you shared it through Dotloop, right? So you can actually go into the documents, and right up here, you'll see some options within the documents. So there's share, we've talked about that. If you go to more, you can go into the document history, and it shows anytime somebody views it, it shows anytime somebody signs it, shares it, everything. So if there's ever an issue where they're like, we never got the TRR, and so we're not doing any repairs, or something crazy happens like that, you can go in and you can look at that. Let's hope that never happens, right? Whoops. But that being said, let me show you some more of these functions up here. So within the more section, that's really the only one we use is the document history, and we've talked about autofill. This add is really cool. Let's say that we had three buyers instead of 2, right? So you need another signature box. You can add signature boxes. You can assign them to one of the people that you have. Or let's say we need to add another signature box for the silk side, right? So now that we've clicked on that, we can go to role and seller. And also in add, you can add initial boxes and assign those as well. Let's say that everything was signed, right? But we clicked the wrong thing here. This happens a lot where I will go in and I will add a strike through. And that's interesting. Why does it add checkbox there? I'm gonna have to call Dotloop. There should be an add checkbox there. Drop that there. Oh, it won't let me. Anyways, you can add strikers, right? And then you can also add initial boxes, which I'll get that figured out later. And then, you know, once you've done all your edits and stuff, you can save it. And say if you're not quite ready to share it yet, you can just go to this little back arrow and say, no, I don't want to share it right now.
And that means it won't be sent to you.
Yeah, it won't be sent to anybody.
Okay.
Excuse me. And you can also, from here, like the file option, you can print, you can download. And see how these are grayed out on this file option? Split document, rotate, apply, template. You know, you can really use that, but split document and rotate are grayed out. That's because this has been shared for signature and it's waiting on somebody to sign. For teaching purposes, let's pretend that this, let me find a better one. Let's pretend that this is several pages that came from the other agent. We moved it over from our email, right? So we went to add document, we clicked on email, we clicked copy to the clipboard. We went over to our email, we clicked forward, we pasted that in the 2-line and send, and so now it's over in our Dotloop, right? And we want to split it out into a few different things instead of just a chunk of like 24 pages. So what you can do is you can select, and then you can go to make a copy. And you're gonna wanna do a flat PDF because it saves the signatures. And we wanna put it in our loop. And so it says, okay, what is our loop? And we'll tell it. You just kind of start typing the name of your loop until you find it. And it'll ask, okay, what folder do you want it in? And you copy it. So now, and see how it's made a duplicate and it put 01 because it knows that there's another one named that, right? So since this one is selected, we can archive it. And we can open up our new one. And so now these options are all available. We can rotate either by page or the whole thing. This split here is great though. When you click split, you can split it up as many times as you want, up to the number of pages, right? So if there were 24 pages, we could split it like 8 ways if we want. Like say if page 1 to 7 were our contract, page 8 and 9 are the loan addendum, and so on and so forth, right? So first you tell it how many times you want to split. And then you set your page numbers. And while you're doing this, as long as you know this initial number, you can scroll through as you fill in this info. So like, you know, I can call that this, and I can keep scrolling and call that this, and so on and so forth. So that's really handy if somebody says, hey, I need this one page out of the bajillion I just sent you, you know, sometimes that can be a little overwhelming for the clients if they get like a ton of stuff back and forth, you know. So that's how you do it. You can, I'll show you that one more time. You can make a copy as a flat PDF to the loop. We type in our name. We tell it which folder and copy. While the old one is selected, we can archive it, and there's our newest version. And then you go File, Split. So we've covered a lot today. Does anybody have any questions? I hope that this all makes sense. And I'm going to email this out company-wide today. And thank you so much for everybody that's joined online. Anita, Brandon, Haley, Angela, Kim, Miss Andrea, Randy. Anybody have any questions or anything you want to add? Did I miss anything?
Yes, I'm sorry. The reason why I was on here because I've done Dotloop and I always for years, but the signature part, sometimes I get that like messed up where it won't, like, you know, whenever you email it to someone and it won't let them I guess when you're adding in a document like a supplement and then adding that signature on and making sure that they can sign it. I've had that happen before where it wouldn't let them sign it.
Okay, so let's just do an example. So what I did, let me back up. I went to add, go to our templates. So we're gonna add like an addendum, for example. So whenever you add a new document, it's gonna prompt you to go ahead and autofill it, which is great. So on addendums, you usually just type in the word purchase up here. We're gonna add the seller's name, we're gonna add our verbiage, like maybe title company will change to whatever, right? It's always a good idea to double check what the signature boxes are assigned to, because just like any other technology, sometimes there are glitches, right? So, this side looks good to me, no sellers, because we don't have any sellers in our people section, so it's automatically assigned that role. Buyer, it says buyer Anna Clifton, or if it makes you feel better, you can go ahead and just click on that. And since we don't have a second client, you can actually remove that if you want. So yeah, Kim, it's always a good idea to just double check, make sure it looks absolutely, fill it out before you go to save and share. Make sure it says can sign or can fill and sign, depending on what it is. If all they're doing is initialing or signing, it just needs to say can sign. And I always attach a PDF and a little note and share. And push done. And you also, you need to exit the document. After you share something. You gotta
Okay, maybe that's what, you know how something happens and you can't replicate it again. But I literally had to print it off and I took it to the man's house. I was like, fine, just sign it. Like I'm not doing it. May have been if he didn't X out. Like if you're waiting on somebody, it won't do it. Is that what happens?
And you know what, I'm glad, man, I'm sorry that that's been happening, but I'm glad we found a resolution, and I'm glad you're bringing this up, because something else to know about Dotloop is when you send things to two clients at once, they also cannot be in the documents at the same time. Cause sometimes, you know, maybe it's a husband and wife, and they're excited, and they're like, oh, let's sign together on our phones. Nope, you can't do that. So-
Okay,
so
that's
I
good
wanna let
information.
you know, hey, one of you sign first and one of you sign second, because you can't be in them at the same time.
At the same time. Okay, because
Yeah.
it was one of those weird one-offs and I was like, I have no idea what's wrong with it. And then I just wanted to throw the computer against the wall and it probably one of us was still logged or, you know, we didn't X out of it.
Yeah, and I guess the main reason for that is all the signatures and initials in Dotloop come with a timestamp of the exact hour, minute, and second it's signed. So, yeah, so it's probably an issue because it timestamps it.
To tell people to be sure and X out and log
Yeah.
back in.
Yeah, once you share, you gotta push that little blue arrow and get out of it.
Okay, cool.
Does anybody else have anything?
Well, I think for me, just moving from transaction desk to dot loop has been the hardest thing, because in that they can sign all at the same time, you don't have to wait for each other. And then I've just been putting the documents in dot loop, but just trying to see if this would be easier. And I guess it just comes down to using it.
Yeah, I think you would like it once you get used to it.
I do like it. And I was like you and Barrett was like, you need to use Dotloop. And I was like, I hate it because it just looks so foreign. But once I figured out that it does so much more for you, it makes a lot more sense and keeps everything, you know, more organized and easier to find is what I like.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to using it, and that's what I've told myself.
Yep, I think you're right.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything today?
Anna,
Uh-huh.
you know how sometimes like if you send a document, I don't know how it works, like if you get signatures and then you send it to somebody else and sometimes it deletes the signatures you've already received? Like, how do you keep from doing that?
Goodness, yeah, that's unfortunate. That does happen sometimes. So it might be a good idea to do that, how we just made a copy of a flat PDF to preserve the signature, right? That might be a good idea before sending it over to somebody else. So like this one is a flat PDF copy, right? So, and we would assume it would have one signature, right? So we could just go ahead and add another signature and send it to whoever, since the other one would be preserved, you know? So I guess if you run into that, let me know, because it shouldn't be doing that. It should not be kicking off one signature when someone else signs. I have seen that happen on the salt referral form. Is that the one you're talking about, or what did that happen on?
I can't remember. It's happened to a couple people where they'll send it for another signature and it deletes the signature they already had on there. So,
Okay, well, if you could start, texting me when that happens and we'll get it figured out with Dotloop. Cause Dotloop has been really great about, you know, there's glitches here and there, and so I'll let them know and then we'll figure it out. So, cool. Alrighty, well, unless anybody has anything else, I think that is a pretty good explanation of Dotloop for today.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You guys have a wonderful Wednesday.
You too. Thanks, Anna.
All right, be salty. Be salty. Bye.
The more they work out, the people is. Yeah, pretty good.
Well, the great thing is, that's really all there is to it. Yeah. You know, it's great. You just have to get in there and get used to be there. Yeah, but if you ever need me to like sit down and help you, like more than Molly or Sharina or whoever, you know, you can always shout at somebody, or whenever you get your first, you know, contract, it's a great idea to sit down with them for like, yeah, and like have them help you with it, you know, just so, you know, we don't show up their clients. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So. Cool. All right, now I'm gonna figure out how to save this recording. I don't know. Have a good day, Randy. Yeah, you're so welcome.
I was glad to have, you know, access to the practices, because I thought, you know, I did go in and play around with that, so they didn't have a lot, but you answered a lot of questions that I had. Go on, you know, playing around with this. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, because the last time I taught this, I wasn't feeling very well. And then the next day I took the COVID test and turned out I was kind of brain foggish and kind of like skipping around, but Haley got in through the class and was like, what about this? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, we talked about that, you know, so
Yeah.
I feel like it went way better this time.
Because I'm more of a hands-on person, so I have to, you know, I can hear things, but for me to really grasp it and to learn it, I have to actually go in and put my hands on the keyboard, you know what I'm saying, and actually do it. But, but again, you know, you still having these classes really help you to realize some of the things that you weren't doing or that you were missing and you could figure out. And you say, okay, so that's what I didn't do, or that's what I need to do. But it is a lot of information, because like I said, back years ago when I did this course, we didn't have all this technology. We didn't have any of this. Everything was paper. You know, everything was taken, meeting in the office and signing documents and going over everything, even the title company. And this makes things so much more easier and so organized. And so, and you really have to see the buyers and fellows in person. You know what I mean? And so I would miss that part because I'm so used to face-to-face contact with someone. But of course, you got a lot of people who are like busier these days, they can't get out work to do this or that. And this makes it a lot more convenient for the buyers
Yeah.
or the sellers to, they need to have to be work, you know, it's those numbers.
Yeah,